The debriefing session following their return to Fort Bragg lasted several hours, with intelligence officers gathering detailed information about every aspect of the mission. Marcus provided precise documentation of wind conditions, target behavior, and equipment performance that would be valuable for planning future operations. Colonel Patterson's report on the mission marked a significant shift in his assessment of Marcus's capabilities. The colonel had personally witnessed shooting accuracy that exceeded anything in his previous military experience, and his official documentation reflected this newfound respect for Marcus's skills. Within 48 hours of their return, word of the successful mission had spread throughout the special operations community. The extreme range and challenging conditions of the shot had created considerable interest among other sniper units, with requests coming in for Marcus to share his techniques and training methods. Marcus found himself in the unusual position of being asked to conduct training sessions for other elite marksmen who wanted to improve their long-range shooting capabilities. These sessions provided opportunities to demonstrate the systematic approach he used for complex shots, breaking down the process into teachable components. Colonel Patterson attended several of these training sessions, observing as Marcus explained the mental and physical preparation required for extreme-range precision shooting. The colonel was impressed not only by Marcus's shooting ability but also by his skill as an instructor and his willingness to share knowledge with fellow soldiers. The training ground that had been the site of Marcus's disappointing initial demonstration now served as the location for advanced marksmanship courses. Marcus used the same targets and positions that had caused him difficulty during his first evaluation, but now his shots consistently grouped within inches of his intended point of impact. Other members of the sniper unit noticed the change in Colonel Patterson's attitude toward Marcus and the specialized capabilities of precision marksmen in general. The colonel began requesting more detailed briefings on long-range shooting techniques and started advocating for additional resources to support advanced training programs. Marcus's confidence had been fully restored by the successful completion of the high-stakes mission. The pressure of performing under Colonel Patterson's scrutiny had initially undermined his abilities, but proving himself under genuine combat conditions had eliminated any remaining self-doubt about his skills. The transformation in the relationship between Marcus and his commanding officer became a topic of discussion throughout the base. Soldiers who had witnessed the initial tension between the two men now observed a mutual respect that had developed through shared experience and demonstrated competence. Colonel Patterson began incorporating Marcus into planning sessions for other high-priority missions, recognizing that his unique capabilities could provide tactical advantages that were not available through conventional military assets. The colonel's strategic thinking expanded to include possibilities that had not been considered before witnessing Marcus's performance. A month after the successful mission, Marcus received notification that he had been selected for promotion to staff sergeant, with the citation specifically mentioning his exceptional performance during high-risk operations. Colonel Patterson had personally recommended the promotion, emphasizing Marcus's value to the unit and the broader military mission. The promotion ceremony was attended by soldiers from throughout the base, many of whom had heard about Marcus's remarkable shot but had not witnessed his capabilities firsthand. Colonel Patterson spoke during the ceremony about the importance of recognizing genuine excellence when it was demonstrated under challenging conditions. Marcus's new rank came with additional responsibilities, including oversight of training programs for developing snipers and consultation on mission planning for operations requiring precision engagement capabilities. These duties represented recognition of his expertise and his ability to share knowledge effectively with other soldiers. The shooting range at Fort Bragg became a destination for visiting military units who wanted to observe advanced marksmanship techniques. Marcus conducted demonstrations that consistently impressed observers with the precision possible under ideal conditions and the problem-solving required when conditions were less than perfect. Colonel Patterson often accompanied visitors during these demonstrations, using them as opportunities to discuss the value of specialized capabilities within military units. His transformation from skeptic to advocate had been complete, and he now actively promoted the importance of elite marksmanship programs. 6 months after joining the unit, Marcus was selected to participate in an international sniper competition that would test the abilities of marksmen from allied nations. Colonel Patterson supported his participation enthusiastically, confident that Marcus would represent their unit with distinction. The competition included shooting challenges at various ranges and under different environmental conditions, designed to test the complete range of skills required for military sniping. Marcus's performance throughout the competition validated Colonel Patterson's assessment of his exceptional abilities. Marcus finished second in the overall competition, with his closest competitor being a British sniper with over 15 years of experience. The narrow margin of defeat came down to performance on the final stage, where equipment failure cost Marcus valuable points that prevented him from claiming first place. Despite not winning the competition, Marcus's performance earned recognition from international military observers and resulted in invitations to participate in advanced training programs with Allied forces. Colonel Patterson viewed these opportunities as beneficial for both Marcus's development and the unit's capabilities. The success in international competition led to Marcus being selected for assignment to a joint task force that was being organized to address emerging threats requiring specialized capabilities. Colonel Patterson supported the assignment while expressing regret about losing such a valuable team member. During Marcus's final week with the unit, Colonel Patterson organized a farewell ceremony that celebrated his contributions to the team and his role in demonstrating the value of elite marksmanship capabilities. The colonel spoke about how Marcus had changed his understanding of what was possible with proper training and dedication. Marcus reflected on the journey from initial doubt to complete acceptance that had characterized his relationship with Colonel Patterson. The experience had taught him valuable lessons about proving oneself under pressure and the importance of maintaining confidence even when facing skepticism from superiors. The new assignment would present fresh challenges and opportunities to work with elite soldiers from other branches of the military. Marcus felt prepared for these challenges, having proven his abilities convincingly and gained the confidence that came from overcoming initial doubts about his capabilities. Colonel Patterson's final evaluation of Marcus emphasized not only his exceptional shooting skills but also his professionalism, teaching ability, and positive impact on unit morale. The evaluation would become part of Marcus's permanent record and would influence his future career opportunities within the military. As Marcus prepared to leave Fort Bragg, he visited the shooting range one final time to practice on the targets where he had initially struggled to impress his commanding officer. His shots now grouped consistently in the center of the target, reflecting the confidence and skill that had been demonstrated through successful combat operations. The relationship between Marcus and Colonel Patterson had evolved from mutual skepticism to genuine respect based on shared experience and demonstrated competence. Both men had learned valuable lessons about the importance of maintaining open minds and the need to prove capabilities through action rather than reputation. Marcus's story became part of the unit's unofficial history, serving as an example for future soldiers about the importance of perseverance when facing initial doubts from superiors. His experience demonstrated that genuine excellence would ultimately be recognized when given appropriate opportunities for demonstration. Colonel Patterson continued to serve as an advocate for advanced marksmanship programs, using his experience with Marcus as evidence of the tactical value provided by elite precision shooting capabilities. His transformation from skeptic to supporter influenced resource allocation decisions that benefited sniper programs throughout the military. The shooting range at Fort Bragg was eventually renamed in honor of the successful mission that had demonstrated the value of extreme-range precision shooting. A plaque commemorating the achievement served as inspiration for soldiers training to develop similar capabilities. Years later, Marcus would return to Fort Bragg as an instructor, working with new generations of soldiers who aspired to develop elite marksmanship skills. His experience with Colonel Patterson had taught him the importance of patience when working with skeptical superiors and the value of proving oneself through consistent performance. The lessons learned from overcoming initial doubt had shaped Marcus's approach to leadership and instruction throughout his military career. He understood the importance of maintaining high standards while providing opportunities for soldiers to demonstrate their true capabilities under appropriate conditions. Colonel Patterson retired from military service with a reputation for identifying and developing exceptional talent within specialized units. His willingness to revise his initial assessments based on demonstrated performance became a model for other commanders facing similar situations with soldiers whose abilities had been questioned. The successful mission that had transformed doubt into respect remained a defining moment in both men's careers. It demonstrated the importance of providing appropriate challenges for exceptional soldiers and the value of maintaining faith in individual capabilities even when initial demonstrations fall short of expectations. Marcus's achievement at extreme range became a standard reference point for discussions about the limits of precision shooting capabilities. Military instructors used his example to illustrate the level of skill possible with proper training, mental preparation, and dedication to continuous improvement. The story of initial doubt followed by demonstrated excellence became an inspiration for soldiers throughout the special operations community. It proved that exceptional abilities would ultimately be recognized when given appropriate opportunities for display under genuine operational conditions. Both Marcus and Colonel Patterson understood that their experience together had been mutually beneficial, with each man learning valuable lessons about leadership, assessment, and the recognition of genuine talent. Their professional relationship had evolved through shared challenge and mutual respect for demonstrated competence. The transformation from skepticism to advocacy had required both men to maintain open minds and willingness to revise their initial assessments based on new evidence. This flexibility proved essential for maximizing the potential of elite military units and ensuring that exceptional capabilities were properly utilized. Marcus's legacy within the sniper community extended beyond his individual achievements to include his role in changing perceptions about the value and potential of precision shooting capabilities. His experience demonstrated that extraordinary performance was possible when proper support and opportunities were provided. The successful resolution of initial doubts about Marcus's abilities created a template for other commanders facing similar situations with soldiers whose reported capabilities seemed too good to be true. It showed the importance of providing appropriate testing opportunities that matched the complexity of claimed abilities. Colonel Patterson's transformation from skeptic to advocate had lasting impact on military policies regarding the assessment and development of specialized capabilities. His experience influenced guidelines for evaluating elite soldiers and ensuring that exceptional talents were properly recognized and utilized. The shooting demonstration that had initially disappointed became a learning experience about the differences between training ground performance and operational effectiveness. Both Marcus and Colonel Patterson gained insights that would influence their future approaches to assessment and skill development. Marcus's story demonstrated that genuine excellence would ultimately prevail when given appropriate opportunities for demonstration. His perseverance in the face of initial skepticism provided an example for other soldiers facing similar challenges in proving their capabilities to new commanders. The successful mission that proved Marcus's abilities became a case study used in military leadership courses, illustrating the importance of maintaining open minds when assessing soldier capabilities. It showed how initial impressions could be misleading and how proper testing could reveal true potential. Both men continued to reference their shared experience throughout their subsequent careers, using it as an example of how professional relationships could evolve through demonstrated competence and mutual respect. Their story became part of military folklore about the recognition of exceptional talent. The helicopter lifted off from Fort Bragg at 0300 hours, carrying Marcus, Colonel Patterson, and a small support team into the darkness of the Afghan night. The aircraft flew low and fast, using terrain features to mask its approach from enemy radar systems. Through night vision goggles, the landscape below appeared as an alien world of green shadows and shifting contours. Marcus used the flight time to continue his mental preparation, visualizing the shot sequence he would need to execute once in position. He had memorized every detail of the target compound from the satellite imagery, including wind patterns that typically occurred in the region during the early morning hours. The insertion point was located 15 kilometers from the target compound, requiring a difficult approach through mountainous terrain. Marcus carried his specialized rifle system along with enough supplies for a 72-hour mission, though intelligence suggested the target window would occur within the first 12 hours. Colonel Patterson moved with surprising agility for someone of his rank and age, keeping pace with Marcus as they navigated the rocky terrain in complete darkness. The colonel's presence served as a constant reminder of what was at stake, but Marcus found that the pressure actually helped him focus more intently on the mission objectives. The climb to the designated shooting position took 4 hours, with frequent pauses to check for enemy patrols and to verify their location using GPS coordinates. The final approach required crawling the last 500 meters to avoid detection by sentries who had been positioned around the compound's perimeter. As dawn approached, Marcus began establishing his shooting position on a rocky outcropping that provided clear sightlines to the target compound. The rangefinder confirmed a distance of 1,847 meters to the primary target building, well beyond the range at which most snipers could operate effectively. Colonel Patterson positioned himself with binoculars where he could observe both Marcus and the target area. From this vantage point, he would be able to verify the accuracy of any shots fired and assess the overall execution of the mission. The morning air was still, with minimal wind at their elevation. However, Marcus knew that conditions in the valley below could be completely different, and he would need to account for variables that would not be apparent from his position. Temperature differentials between the mountain and valley would create air currents that could deflect his bullet significantly over such a long distance. Marcus assembled his rifle with practiced efficiency, each component fitting together with the precision of a fine instrument. The scope mounted smoothly, and he quickly verified that the zeroing had not shifted during transport. His breathing remained steady and controlled as he settled into his shooting position and began scanning the target compound through his scope. The intelligence reports had indicated that the target would likely appear sometime between 0800 and 1000 hours, based on patterns observed over the previous week. Marcus had positioned himself to take advantage of the optimal lighting conditions that would occur during this time frame. At 0847 hours, movement became visible near the main building of the compound. Through his scope, Marcus could see several figures emerging from the structure, but the distance and early morning shadows made positive identification difficult. He would need to wait for clearer visual confirmation before engaging. Colonel Patterson watched through his binoculars as the situation in the compound developed. He could see the same figures that Marcus was observing, but even with military-grade optics, he struggled to make out specific details at such an extreme range. The colonel began to appreciate the challenges involved in accurate long-range shooting. A radio transmission from intelligence confirmed that electronic surveillance had detected the target's communication equipment becoming active within the compound. This provided additional confirmation that the high-value target was indeed present and would likely reveal himself more clearly as morning activities commenced. Marcus adjusted his scope settings to account for the improving light conditions, fine-tuning the focus to achieve maximum clarity. Every small detail visible through the scope needed to be analyzed and evaluated to ensure accurate target identification when the moment came. At 0934 hours, a figure emerged from the main building and moved into an area with better visibility. Marcus studied the individual carefully, comparing physical characteristics with the photographs he had memorized during the mission briefing. Height, build, distinctive clothing, and movement patterns all needed to match before he could proceed with engagement. The positive identification was confirmed when the figure raised what appeared to be a satellite phone to his ear, matching intelligence reports about the target's communication habits. Marcus felt his heart rate increase slightly as he realized the moment he had been waiting for was approaching. Colonel Patterson noticed the subtle shift in Marcus's posture that indicated he had identified his target. The colonel found himself holding his breath as he watched the sniper begin his final preparations for the shot. Despite his earlier skepticism, Patterson was beginning to understand the level of skill required for such an operation. Marcus began his breathing cycle, allowing his body to reach the natural respiratory pause that would provide the most stable shooting platform. The crosshairs settled on the target as Marcus calculated the final adjustments needed for wind, distance, and elevation. The compound was located in a valley where morning thermal currents were beginning to develop as the sun warmed the ground. Marcus could see heat shimmers starting to rise from various surfaces, indicating that air movement was becoming more complex. He would need to account for these invisible forces that could push his bullet off course. Through his scope, Marcus watched as the target moved to a more exposed position, apparently confident in his security arrangements. This provided the clear shot opportunity that Marcus had been waiting for, but it also meant that the window for engagement might be brief. Colonel Patterson could see the target clearly now through his binoculars, realizing that the individual was completely unaware of the danger he faced. The compound's security measures were focused on ground-level threats and had failed to account for the possibility of long-range precision fire from the surrounding mountains. Marcus made his final wind calculations based on the movement of dust and vegetation visible in the valley below. The air currents appeared to be flowing consistently from left to right, requiring him to aim slightly upwind to compensate for bullet drift during its lengthy flight time. The trigger pressure increased gradually as Marcus reached the perfect moment for shot execution. His breathing had stopped naturally, his body was completely stable, and the target remained in an ideal position for engagement. All the variables had aligned as well as could be expected under field conditions. The rifle fired with a sharp crack that echoed off the surrounding mountains, immediately revealing their position to anyone within several kilometers. Marcus maintained his sight picture through the scope, watching for impact indication while simultaneously preparing to relocate if necessary. The bullet's flight time over 1,847 meters was approximately 2.5 seconds, during which Marcus continued to observe the target through his scope. The target remained stationary, apparently unaware that a projectile was racing toward him at supersonic speed. Colonel Patterson watched through his binoculars as the target suddenly collapsed, struck by Marcus's bullet with devastating precision. The accuracy of the shot at such extreme range was beyond anything the colonel had previously witnessed, and he found himself genuinely impressed by the level of skill that had been demonstrated. Confirmation of the successful engagement came through radio intercepts as compound personnel reacted to the sudden loss of their leader. The chaos and confusion that followed indicated that the security forces had no idea where the attack had originated from, providing Marcus and the colonel with time to begin their extraction. Marcus quickly disassembled his rifle and prepared to move from their current position. Standard procedure required immediate relocation after any engagement to avoid potential counterattacks or artillery strikes directed at their location. The extraction route had been planned to take them to a different pickup zone, reducing the risk of enemy forces anticipating their movements. Colonel Patterson moved with renewed respect for Marcus's abilities as they began their withdrawal through the rugged mountain terrain. As they moved away from the shooting position, Colonel Patterson reflected on what he had just witnessed. The shot had required not only exceptional marksmanship skills but also the ability to make complex calculations under pressure and execute perfectly when it mattered most. The radio confirmation that the high-value target had been eliminated provided official validation of the mission's success. Marcus had accomplished an objective that would have been beyond the capabilities of most military units, using nothing more than skill, training, and determination. During the movement to the extraction point, Colonel Patterson began to understand why Marcus's previous commanders had spoken so highly of his abilities. The demonstration on the training ground had failed to capture the complete picture of what made Marcus truly exceptional as a sniper. The helicopter pickup occurred without incident, and the flight back to base provided time for Colonel Patterson to process what he had observed during the mission. His initial skepticism about Marcus's reported capabilities had been completely dispelled by the precision of that single shot. As they approached Fort Bragg, Marcus felt a sense of satisfaction that went beyond the successful completion of the mission. He had proven to himself and to his commanding officer that his reputation was based on genuine ability rather than exaggerated claims or favorable circumstances. The morning sun cast long shadows across the training ground as Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez adjusted his rifle scope for what felt like the 100th time. The metal was cold against his weathered hands, and his breath formed small clouds in the crisp air of Fort Bragg. Around him, other soldiers prepared their equipment with the methodical precision that had been drilled into them through countless hours of training. Marcus had earned his place among the elite sniper unit through years of dedication and an almost supernatural ability to hit targets that others deemed impossible. His record spoke for itself, confirmed kills at distances that pushed the boundaries of what was considered achievable with standard military equipment. Yet today, he found himself facing something more challenging than any enemy combatant: the skeptical gaze of his new commanding officer. Colonel James Patterson had arrived at the base 3 weeks earlier with a reputation for being tough but fair. However, he also carried with him a deep skepticism about what he considered to be exaggerated claims from previous commanders. Patterson had seen too many soldiers whose abilities had been inflated by their superiors, only to disappoint when it truly mattered in combat situations. The colonel stood behind Marcus with his arms crossed, watching as the sergeant made his final preparations. Patterson had reviewed Marcus's file extensively, and, while the numbers were impressive, he had learned to take such reports with a grain of salt. Too many times, he had witnessed the gap between training ground performance and real-world effectiveness. Marcus could feel the weight of the colonel's doubt pressing down on him like a heavy blanket. The other soldiers in the unit had warned him about Patterson's tendency to dismiss claims of exceptional ability until proven otherwise. Several talented marksmen had already been reassigned to different units after failing to meet the colonel's exacting standards during their evaluations. The target had been positioned at a distance of 1,200 meters, well within Marcus's comfort zone under normal circumstances. However, today's conditions were far from ideal. A crosswind gusted unpredictably across the range, and intermittent cloud cover created constantly changing light conditions. These were the kind of variables that could turn even the most skilled marksman into an average shooter. As Marcus settled into his shooting position, he began the mental ritual that had served him well throughout his military career. He controlled his breathing, allowing his heart rate to slow and his mind to focus solely on the task ahead. The world around him seemed to fade away, leaving only him, his rifle, and the distant target that appeared as little more than a small dot through his scope. Colonel Patterson checked his watch impatiently. He had scheduled this demonstration reluctantly, and only after persistent requests from Marcus's previous commander. In his experience, soldiers who truly possessed exceptional skills rarely needed to prove themselves through elaborate displays. Their abilities became apparent naturally through their consistent performance in various situations. The first shot rang out across the training ground, its echo bouncing off the surrounding hills. Through his binoculars, Patterson watched as the bullet struck the target slightly left of center. It was a good shot by most standards, but hardly the display of elite accuracy that had been promised in Marcus's file. Marcus felt a familiar tightness in his chest as he realized his first attempt had not been perfect. The crosswind had been stronger than he had anticipated, and he had failed to compensate adequately. He quickly adjusted his calculations, taking into account the wind speed and direction that he had just confirmed through his missed shot. The second shot was closer, striking the outer ring of the target's center mass. Patterson nodded slightly, acknowledging the improvement but remaining unimpressed by what he was seeing. He had witnessed many competent marksmen achieve similar results under comparable conditions. By the fourth shot, Marcus had found his rhythm. The bullet struck dead center, exactly where he had intended. The fifth and sixth shots grouped tightly around the same point, creating a pattern that would have been respectable at half the distance. However, Patterson remained unmoved by the demonstration. While Marcus's shooting was certainly competent, it fell short of the extraordinary claims that had been made about his abilities. The colonel had expected to see something truly exceptional, something that would justify the resources that had been invested in Marcus's specialized training. As the formal evaluation concluded, Patterson approached Marcus with a neutral expression that revealed nothing of his thoughts. The sergeant could sense the disappointment radiating from his new commander, even though no words had been spoken. The other members of the sniper unit gathered around to discuss the session, their conversation subdued by the obvious tension between Marcus and the colonel. They had all witnessed Marcus's capabilities in previous training exercises and knew that today's performance was not representative of his true abilities. Marcus spent the remainder of the day analyzing what had gone wrong during the demonstration. The conditions had been challenging, but he had faced worse situations in combat and had still managed to achieve his objectives. Something about performing under the colonel's scrutinizing gaze had affected his concentration in ways that enemy fire never had. That evening, as Marcus cleaned his rifle in the barracks, he reflected on the conversations he had overheard throughout the day. Several soldiers had mentioned that Colonel Patterson was considering restructuring the sniper unit, potentially eliminating positions that he deemed unnecessary or redundant. The thought of being reassigned to a standard infantry unit filled Marcus with dread. He had worked too hard and sacrificed too much to allow his career to be derailed by one subpar performance. The specialized training he had received and the skills he had developed were too valuable to waste on routine patrol duties or basic combat operations. Marcus's roommate, Corporal David Kim, had witnessed the entire evaluation from a distance. David had served alongside Marcus during their previous deployment and had personally seen him make shots that seemed to defy the laws of physics. He understood the pressure that Marcus was feeling and the importance of proving himself to their new commander. As they talked late into the night, David reminded Marcus of a particular incident during their deployment in Afghanistan. Marcus had successfully neutralized 3 enemy combatants from a concealed position over 1,500 meters away, while under heavy return fire and with limited visibility due to a sandstorm. The accuracy he had displayed that day had saved the lives of an entire patrol that had been pinned down by enemy forces. The memory of that successful mission helped restore some of Marcus's confidence, but he knew that past achievements would not be sufficient to satisfy Colonel Patterson. He would need to find a way to demonstrate his true capabilities in a manner that would leave no room for doubt or interpretation. The next morning brought news that would provide Marcus with exactly the opportunity he needed. Intelligence reports had identified a high-value target operating in a remote compound approximately 50 kilometers from the base. The mission would require a precision strike under extremely challenging conditions, and Colonel Patterson was looking for volunteers from the sniper unit. Marcus immediately stepped forward to volunteer, despite knowing that failure would likely result in his immediate reassignment. The mission represented his best chance to prove that his reputation had been earned through genuine skill rather than exaggerated reports from sympathetic commanders. Colonel Patterson studied Marcus carefully as he explained his willingness to take on the dangerous assignment. The mission would require operating alone in hostile territory, with no possibility of backup or extraction if things went wrong. It was exactly the kind of high-risk operation that separated truly elite soldiers from those who merely possessed above-average skills. The target was a bombmaker who had been responsible for several attacks on coalition forces in the region. Intelligence suggested that he would be present at the compound for only a brief window of time, making timing absolutely critical. Additionally, the shot would need to be taken from a distance of over 1,800 meters due to the defensive positions surrounding the target area. As Marcus prepared for the mission, he felt a familiar calm settling over him. This was the type of challenge that had drawn him to become a sniper in the first place. Unlike the artificial pressure of a training demonstration, this mission carried real stakes and genuine consequences for success or failure. The equipment check took longer than usual, with Marcus inspecting every component of his rifle and scope with meticulous attention to detail. He selected his ammunition carefully, choosing rounds that had been precisely manufactured for long-range accuracy. Every element of his gear was evaluated and tested to ensure optimal performance when it mattered most. Colonel Patterson observed the preparation process with growing interest. He had noticed the transformation in Marcus's demeanor from the previous day's demonstration. Gone was the nervous energy and self-doubt that had been evident during the training exercise. In its place was the quiet confidence of a professional who understood exactly what needed to be accomplished. The intelligence briefing provided additional details about the target's routine and the layout of the compound. Marcus studied satellite photographs and topographical maps, identifying potential shooting positions and escape routes. His questions during the briefing were precise and focused, revealing a level of tactical understanding that impressed even the experienced intelligence officers. As the mission departure time approached, Marcus felt the familiar mixture of anticipation and focus that preceded every significant operation. He had spent years training for moments like this, and he was finally being given the opportunity to demonstrate why his specialized skills were valuable to the military. Colonel Patterson made the unusual decision to accompany the mission as an observer, wanting to witness firsthand whether Marcus could deliver under genuine combat conditions. The colonel's presence added another layer of pressure to an already challenging operation, but Marcus welcomed the opportunity to prove himself conclusively.